All right, friends, are you ready for this final aspect that Venus is going to make in the sign of Virgo where it's debilitated? And I don't mean final just because it's going to get out of the sign. I mean the final time that Venus is going to have this opposition to Saturn from the sign of Virgo. The first one happened in October 2023, the second one in August 2024, and now one last time, and we will not have this opposition again for another 28 years. So that's the good news. And when we look back at the narrative of Venus since it moved into the sign of Virgo, it's been a complicated one. It's been a journey about us struggling with our sense of comfort, what we find pleasurable, what we connect to in our lives, and where we have a sense of belonging. In a lot of ways, things have been uncomfortable, disconnected, a state of lacking ease, and not really feeling like we belong anywhere. But of course, Venus couldn't just go through its debilitation through Virgo. It had to encounter a whole bunch of things from the get-go, and then it has this last opposition to Saturn. It's like one more test, one more realization before we're free and we're in the sign of Libra. And as soon as Venus makes that ingress into the sign of Libra, I'm so looking forward to this. I'm going to make that video, and if you guys want to watch it, press the notification button, subscribe notification so you'll be notified. I'm done with these lessons personally. And as usual, this video is timestamped, so if you guys want to go back and forth, please feel free to do so. And now without further ado, let's just get right into it. So let's just backtrack a little bit about what Venus, the Venus in us, has been going through since it entered the sign of Virgo. So as soon as it entered, it got a square from Uranus. So a lot of disruptions in terms of how we conduct ourselves and our thinking process, and we just had to regroup really quickly. And then there was an eclipse in this sign. And then as I talked about it extensively in the previous video, Venus came into a conjunction with Ketu, and that was not fun. And then Venus had a moment of breath of fresh air in its debilitation when it got that sextile from Jupiter, but it was so quick and it was over with. And right away, what happens is starts to get into the orb of Saturn and that opposition. And we got to remember that Saturn's in its retrograde motion, so it's super strong at this moment. This is a dialogue that is loud. It's like a couple that they're not just talking to each other. Saturn's going to be yelling. So it's undeniable. And we got to remember Venus is debilitated and she's been going through a lot. We've been going through a lot. So it's almost like, I don't even have the energy to fight with you anymore. Why are you screaming? I can't even hear you because you're screaming. I'm exhausted. But this opposition is kind of like that saying, when it rains, it pours, and the damn thing just won't stop. It's almost as if Murphy's Law is coming to effect for a few days. But then again, when we consider that this is the third and the last time that Venus is going to have this opposition, it's also like that other saying that the rain washes away our sun. So we're coming to a very clear understanding about where we stand and how we can conduct ourselves from here forth. It's like the mother in labor, one last push, and everyone's encouraging it. You can do it. I'm encouraging us. We can do it. So let me just set up the stage here for this opposition. On October 9th, Venus gets to that 24-degree mark of Virgo. So it's entered the orb of Saturn. And Saturn's at 27 degrees in its retrograde motion in the sign of Pisces. And the exact opposition will perfect on October 11th. And after that, they start to move away from each other. So it's becoming less of tension points. But right now it's building up. And we often think of oppositions as confrontations. It's like two planets standing on the opposite side of the zodiac and demanding recognition about where they are and what they need to do. And then here we have two planets in very difficult conditions. As mentioned earlier, Venus is debilitated. In Virgo, Venus is stripped off of all of its power. That receptivity, that harmonious aspect that's in Venus, that's about creating union and just creating a sense of pleasure and comfort, all of these feelings are prevented. And Saturn retrograde in Pisces, yes, is not debilitated. It's not as bad as Venus. But Saturn in Pisces struggles a lot to enforce its boundaries, limitations, and restrictions. It's in a place of dissolution and ambiguity. And in planetary friendships, Venus and Saturn are actually friends. So when they're both strong and they're making an aspect, they can actually have a very constructive dialogue. But considering how they're both struggling, that's why I was saying it's like Saturn is screaming and Venus is too exhausted right now. So it's not a simple Saturn-Venus kind of a dialogue or narrative. Both planets are speaking from their weakness. So they're both going to be exposing the frailty of what we depend on for love, for security, for comfort, pleasure, people that we rely on. All of these things are going to be challenged. I know in general, when Venus is in the sign of Virgo, the pleasure principle of Venus is constantly replaced with grimy, practical routines of life. I was saying in the last video, Venus is stripped of its luxurious feeling. There can even be a lot of self-denial. Like, I can't do this. There's a sense of criticism. Like, I'm eating too much. I'm too fat. I'm too tall. I'm too short. My partner's like this. Just like you get constantly analyzing everything. And sometimes we want to receive. Sometimes we want to be loved. Sometimes we want to be held. But Venus in Virgo is forced to put itself at a place where it's of service to others. And it's usually in service of the most essential and basic redundant routines of life. So for us to have this feeling of like, okay, I had a moment to myself where I could regenerate, it hasn't happened yet. And then the Saturn's not going to help us much either. Like for Venus in Virgo, Virgos keep telling Venus, like, what is your partnership about? What is this love about? You can't love just for love's sake. What's the reason behind it? So connections have to constantly prove themselves as being something useful. And this is exhausting. Beauty constantly has to be refined, cleaned. There's a sense of cleanliness. And that sense of purification that's in Virgo. That's exhausting. And Virgos keep telling Venus, your love has to be practical. What's the application for this? How are you serving something else? How does it fit the bigger picture? Again, it's exhausting. So Venus is already struggling. Like, we really didn't need Saturn, but it's going to come in. But I do want to bring in a flavor of the Nakshatras, the lunar mansions, and to this video, where both Saturn and Venus are sitting, because it'll give us a depth of the ways that we're feeling and what is it for? Why are we feeling this way? So during this opposition, Venus is going to be in Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra. This Nakshatra, the Phalgunis, both of them, symbolize bonds and contracts. They are about partnerships and agreements that bind us to other people, agreements that are lawful, where we have to be moral and ethical. It's the way that we are responsible to each other. That's what the Purva Bhadrapada Nakshatra is denoting. This nakshatra is asking Venus right now, what are you committed to? What unions can you actually maintain and carry the full gravity and the full weight and responsibility of it? But considering where Venus is, the condition of Venus and everything that is gone through, it's hard for us right now to answer that question. It just feels too pressurized. Like, one of the primary feelings in us right now that we're grappling with, nothing's feeling good enough. So we don't even know what is enough to be able to say, yeah, I'm committed to that person and I'm willing to do this and that. So Venus, even without Saturn here, has been struggling and is struggling with these kinds of topics. And then Saturn's bringing its own difficulty by sign and by nakshatra also. Let's go through the sign first, and then I'll bring the nakshatra in for that one too. As I was saying, Pisces is very unbounded. It's about dissolution. It's about merging things beyond differentiation. It is actually a sign that is about the spiritual current of things. So it resists that material commitment or the ways that we want to contain things and then be able to categorize them like the way we do in Virgo. Pisces is the exact opposite. And then what do we have? We have Saturn, the planets of restriction, limitation, boundaries, saying no, in a sign that doesn't understand these concepts. So Saturn here can't impose restrictions and limitations the way that it needs to. So Saturn is struggling. So Saturn has to be smart here. That rational part of Saturn. Saturn's thinking to itself, how do I convey my message, who I am and what I do in this kind of a situation? So it thinks to itself, the way I can convey this is to actually show where someone or something is insufficient, where they have built their life on illusions, idealizations. And the way Saturn's gonna do this is to create a lot of feelings that are related to dissatisfaction, especially in areas that we're clinging to our fantasies, because the sign of Pisces can be super dreamy. Saturn is a planet of reality. So Saturn's like, I'm going to take your fantasies and show you how dissatisfying they are because they have no application in reality. So Saturn's going to show us where we have magical thinking, ideals that can't actually manifest in the real world. Sure, they can stay in the realm of thoughts and emotions, but they can't become something real in the world. And as far as the nakshatra goes, Saturn is in Purva Bhadrapada. And Purva Bhadrapada itself is considered an ugra, or a fierce nakshatra. Its symbol is a sacrificial bed, an altar for sacrifice. And it's ruled by Ajakapada, which is an avatar of Shiva. Shiva is the god, the destroyer god. And Ajakapada is a one-footed serpent, a sea serpent, carrying the energy of fire, sacrifice, and transitions. And this nakshatra has nothing to do with comforts. It has to do with extremes. It's about dragging the entirety of the material world to the sacrificial altar to burn it. This nakshatra wants to burn the material world after collecting it and gathering it to show us what lays beneath it, underneath it. It wants us to see the underlying essence of existence that gives rise to form. The form itself is not the essence of existence. So when Saturn comes into this field of interaction, especially in its retrograde motion, which is super strong, it has to operationalize this nakshatra somehow. So it creates like a twofold kind of a situation. For one, we want the world, we want the things of the world, and we may very well be able to get it. And then when we have it, we look at it and we're like, this sucks. There's zero satisfaction in this. What is the meaning of this? Why can't I feel happy? So Saturn, through that dissatisfaction, is forcing us to take this world that we built with our own two hands, take it to the sacrificial altar to be burnt. Because the only meaning left, it's what's the essence? What's beneath it? What is the truth? So Saturn here is constantly inducing this feeling of it's not enough. And then Venus, on the other hand, is not good enough in the sign of Virgo. Saturn saying, this is not real. This can't last. That's the feeling that we have. We're looking at different situation in our lives. We're like, this cannot be true. This cannot be the totality of my life right now. There has to be more to this than just this. And that dissatisfaction that Venus is feeling on the other end too, is just making this exponentially bigger. So in some ways, the sign of Virgo relative to Venus and Saturn in this nakshatra and being in Pisces is showing us where things are hollow, things that can't endure the true weight of what we need to carry, people that can't carry our weight that we can't carry of other people. Some things in our lives need to be purified. Virgo, simplified. So in a lot of ways, Saturn, as a planet related to the air, is fanning the flame of Purva Bhadrapada for us to burn off the excess. And the excess has a lot to do with our illusions, fantasy thinking, magical thinking. So Saturn's trying to help us confront reality right now, things that have true substance in our life. It's almost like if Saturn could talk, it would say something like, whatever you built on fantasies, projections, or for the sake of escape, they have to die. It cannot endure time. It cannot endure reality. So in a lot of ways, Saturn and Venus, this last opposition that they have, this time is about letting go. When I look back at my own experience on October 2023, it was the beginning of an end for a relationship. And then when I look at Saturn and Venus, the next time they met in August, it was just a couple months after the end of that relationship and me coming to grapple with a lot of realities of the change. And now, in the third time, over a year now, it's kind of like, well, how are you concluding it? What's the understanding? So look at your own narrative. What has been the ongoing narrative? The arc of the story should have been the last one, actually. And now we're just kind of tapering it off, concluding it, and moving to the next phase. And the beauty is that Venus is going into the sign of Libra. It's in its own sign. So we really are concluding the story with a greater understanding and moving very lightly through the sign of Libra. And when Venus is in the sign of Libra, it's not going to make any brutal aspects. Venus is just going through. It's going to have that first connection with Uranus, which is still a trine, and it's just going to move smoothly through. So this moment, it's actually worth it. Considering how long this narrative has been going on, let us conclude it. And let's just look at how this might manifest itself at this point for some of us, or the themes that we might be grappling with. Because honestly, no one can tell you how the transits are going to manifest in your life if they don't have your birth chart. But there's a feeling in the air. Let's just explore that. For example, let's take relationships, because Venus is the significator and the symbol for relationships. When it comes to relationship, we might feel very burnt out at this moment, stripped of the ease that might have been in the relationship. It's like love is now being tested full throttle to see if we can be responsible, if the other party can be responsible, if we can endure in the absence of pleasure. This is one of the biggest tests of every relationship, and every relationship will go through it. And there will be long durations of it. So again, considering 2023 to 2025 now, this has been a theme for a lot of people in their relationships. Were you able to sustain those relationships in the absence of pleasure? This is the moment of make it or break it for a lot of people. And a lot of relationships could feel like they're starved of any kind of warmth. And this opposition to Saturn just brings extra coldness. Others might feel like, you know what, my relationship has no substance. That Nakshatra thing of Saturn. What is the essence of a thing? What is that substance beneath matter? If there's nothing, then it doesn't matter. This is the kind of feeling that we can have right now. We can also bring the theme of finances into this, because Virgo is the eternal accountant, and Venus has a lot to do with the luxuries of life, the finer things in life, and things that we have in our life that holds value and it can actually be exchanged for that commerce aspect of things. And Venus does have to do with commerce and trades too, not as much as Mercury, but it does. So there could be a financial struggle in our life too. And this could also have its theme since 2023 till now. Like, for example, we might be noticing that anything that we used to have as this little bit of indulgence, guilty pleasure, is just restricted right now. And there's such harsh scrutiny on how we can spend our money and how we can extract pleasure from it. It's constantly like we're meeting some sort of a limit. And now with Saturn there is the ultimate restriction and limit. Strict rules around our resources that might bring us a sense of security and comfort. It's almost as if we have to become these eternal accountants right now, counting every penny and make sure that we can actually get through this time. And on top of that, Saturn, because it's a planet of restrictions, Saturn's very austere. It's demanding of us to simplify even more, strip it down a little bit more, less spending over there, downsize. And it's almost as if Venus on the other end is screaming, like, what do you want me to do? Rip off my limbs? I have nothing else to cut. If I cut anything else and I'm not eating, then I don't have shelter. So it's very restricted when it comes to finances and how we can feel secure and have a sense of pleasure in our life right now. The feeling right now is like the universe is just keep saying no. No matter how hard we work, no matter where we make the cuts, there's just this pronounced no. There's almost an element of cruelty that's coming through, and that's coming from Saturn right now. Saturn is cruel. It's harsh. It's a malefic. Saturn keeps saying, I want you to learn how to do more with less. But we've gotten to the least, so it's becoming painful. But on the upside, again, Venus is going to make it out. But there's just this moment that's very unpleasant. And it could be a conclusion to this whole theme since 2023. And if that's the case for some of us, hallelujah, we need it. And the last theme I want to bring up is joy itself. And we got to remember, Saturn cools everything. Saturn's tamasic, so it's heavy. It's about inactivity, inertia, lethargy. It's about slowness. And Saturn represses and depresses. Saturn has a lot to do with sadness. And Virgo, on the other hand, is dampening any kind of pleasure feeling because it's putting conditions on everything, and that has to do with its constant analysis of things. We can't analyze things without taking some component of the world, put it in some sort of a category, give it context, and then bring it into relation with something else. This is how we can do analysis. Love is talking about this fullness, this voluptuousness, this merged state that is devoid of these separations. So this is how Venus feels its joy. But in the sign of Virgo, there's all this separation, segmentation. Now analyze this, analyze that. So Venus can't be itself. So there's a feeling like I'm not connected to my life. That's what I was saying at the beginning. There's no sense of belonging. We feel like we don't fit into our lives right now. So it's very hard to extract some sort of a joy from it. And Saturns keep delaying or denying the kind of joy that Venus wants. It keeps saying, not now, not in that form, no. So there's a deep sense of sadness right now. It's just like, and sadness is a feeling of loss, right? We have lost things, we can also be coming to a full realization of what has been lost. And we're trying to figure out now through the analysis of Virgo, now that the space has opened up, because we took things into the altar, to that sacrificial altar, we've burnt it. So now what? What's left? What do we do with this void? There's a lot of these kinds of feelings, which is very hard to extract joy from it until we start the rebuilding project and re-engage with life. But if we stop here, we're going to miss the bigger truth. What I mean is we shouldn't stop at where there's a void, where things have been burnt. We don't need to have Saturn's negative feedback as the last word or the criticism of Virgo naturally, because Venus is not going to stay there for all eternity. And as these conscious beings, we are supposed to expand a realm of horizon right now to understand the core reason of why we've arrived here, where we're at, what we're connected to, what's real, what's not. So this opposition, yes, it brings a lot of pain, but it's not about absolute denial. It's about getting a sense of clarification of where we've arrived, where we're at, what we need to do. And if we listen, we'll start to have a feeling for what this moment is about, what the signs, the planets, and the nakshatras are asking us. For example, Venus in Purva Phalguni, the question there is, can your commitments endure? Are your bonds strong enough to last? Are they ethical, moral? Are they worthy? Can you really extract pleasure from what you're holding on to? And then Saturn, opposing this nakshatra, has a lot to say right now because of its retrograde too. It's strong again. In Purva Bhadrapada Nakshatra is asking us to purify our relationship and our lives and ourselves. It wants us to destroy hollowed out dreams that no longer have use value, don't have a function. Saturn right now is saying superficial relationships cannot and will not survive me. And I am time. I'll show you in time. It's saying that the only things you can carry forth that are going to be lasting, enduring, these are also Saturn significations, or the parts of your life that can carry the weight of it. And we have to look at ourselves. Can we carry certain weight of other people too? Why take other people for a ride if we know we can't be responsible, if we can't be committed? So this is not just about what other people can do for us. It's also about where we stand in relation to them. That analysis of Virgo has to come in at this point. Saturn saying, I'm going to put all of you through a stress test, and whatever that cannot withstand it, it will have to dissolve away. And the kind of symbols that we're talking about things that create suffering, but we don't have to suffer. If we're willing participants to let things that no longer work in our life dissolve, it's usually our resistance that we want to hold on, our refusal to let go, our refusal to accept. Those are the things that create massive suffering in life. It's going against the tides and waves of life, which none of us are strong enough to be able to hold that stance for too long. We will break. We will feel pain through the entire thing. And yes, sometimes it hurts to let certain things go. And that pain will get washed away too, eventually. And I would go so far as to say, if the symbolic worlds could actually have a voice and talk to us, Venus would tell us, I hate going through this. This has been so difficult, but me, as an entity who has higher consciousness, I know where I'm going. I'm going back home. It's my homecoming. I'm going back to the sign of Libra, to my sign. And I want to go there clean. I want to go there with a vision. I want to go there feeling light. So if I have to go through this stretch to purify, to clean, to cleanse, to understand, I'll do it. That's the willingness. And for us, I would say, what we can do is to let Saturn expose our illusions. And as friggin' painful as that is right now, because sometimes that's all we have in life. These dreams, yes, they're delusional, there are illusions, but at least that's what we're holding on to. But Saturn's saying, let it go, so you make some space for something real to come through. I think it's good for us to allow ourselves to really evaluate and see our bonds, our connection, our relationships, our finances. What used to give us pleasure, what gives us pleasure right now, what can't. And to understand our projections so that we can get a grip on reality. And sometimes true pleasure doesn't come from more pleasure. Sometimes true pleasure emerges from working through our pain, our shadows, our faulty ways of thinking. And when we arrive to that moment of clarity, we understand the essence of joy, which is something inherent in existence as existence itself. It's not something you just, I feel that happiness is kind of transient. It can come and go because it's very externally contingent. But that inner joy, that stream that just runs constantly, we can access that. And we can have that even through midst of hardship. And I feel that's what Venus going into the sign of Libra is also denoting. It's like purification and clarification, simplification of so many things that now we can feel that stream of joy that is a constant and in existence running through us. And I think I talked too much for just one aspect. So I'm going to close off the video, but before that, I have made a video about Saturn in Purva Bhadrapada Nakshatra. And this is relevant because Saturn is going to be in this nakshatra for a very long time, for at least another few months. So if you guys want, you can go and check out that video. I'll put it in the links in the description box below. And if you like this video, please remember to like, subscribe, and comment. I appreciate you guys' participation. It's allowing this channel to grow. And I love my interaction with you guys. It's making every minute that I put into this worth it. And if you want a birth chart reading from me, you can go to the description box below again. The link to that will be there, as well as to parisayazdi.com. The process for the reading is also there. And I'll leave you with this. I hope during this time, we have the willingness to let go of what no longer can uphold our being. And may we find clarity in what is stripped away, strength in what endured the test of time since 2023, and grace with what is now being restored, with Venus moving into the sign of Libra. That's it for today. Sending you much love. Till next time.